To get started on this exercise, you should have downloaded the Photoshop logo folder, and inside of this folder is an After Effects project file and also a footage folder with other linked elements. We can get started by double-clicking this Start After Effects file, and this will load up the project at its starting point. If you do get any kind of errors saying that things must be converted, that's okay. Simply say OK, this will open it up. Notice that there's already a composition and a folder with all the layers set. And if you look down at your timeline, all of the layers and graphics are already placed within your working area to get started. To make things a little bit easier to work with, let's go down to our Layers panel, and I'm going to turn off visibility for the On Crescent Lake text layer. This will leave us with just the line and the cove. We want to be able to reveal this line by using a mask. To get started, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so I can see the entire line, fill my screen, and make sure the graphic line layer is selected. With this layer selected, you can go up to your tool panel and select the Rectangle tool. With this Rectangle tool, when you click and drag beside it, notice that it will automatically disappear, but it will create a mask shape inside of this layer. We're going to animate this mask shape to reveal the entire line. To do this, let's go down to our timeline, twirl open the mask sublayer for the graphic line, and then mask 1. Let's place our current time indicator at 15 frames, and click the stopwatch next to mask path to create a starting keyframe. From here, we can move our current time indicator to 1 second. Then, with the layer selected, press Command T to turn on the transformation tools. This will allow you to click on the right side and drag it over until we can see the entire line. With this done, we can hit return. That will lock in, and it'll also create a second keyframe. This will allow us to edit and animate the entire path as it reveals. Let's select our keyframes now and go up to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, and add some easy ease so that this will animate a little bit more naturally. Now let's animate the word cove by using a track matte to create transparency. To get started, let's choose the Cove text layer. It's already in its final position, so let's move our current time indicator to 2 seconds. We'll press the P button to open up the position keyframe and click your stopwatch. From here, we can back everything up to 1 second and move the word cove down till it's below the line. As with the others, while we got these here, let's go ahead and add some easy easing to those keyframes. Now when I press play, you can see how it moves straight up. We're going to deselect all of the lines by holding down Shift-Command-A. That will deselect everything. With the words below the line, let's use our Rectangle tool one more time. Grab your Rectangle tool. With no layers selected, we want to be able to click and drag and create a rectangle above the lined area. Now, I want to be able to see this rectangle, so with it still selected, you can click on the word fill or the swatch next to the word fill, and I'm going to make it red just so I can see what I'm working with. There's nothing important about the specific color that we're using, we just need to be able to see it with beyond the white background. Next, let's choose our selection tool and go down to our Layers panel. Notice that we have our new shape layer, so with it selected, I'm going to hit the Enter key, or actually I'm going to right-click it, and let's do a rename. I'm going to call this my track mask, M-A-T-T-E. For now, I can close it up, and let's select this layer and drag it till it's just above the Cove text layer. Next, we need to be able to see our alpha track mattes inside of our Layers panel. If you can't see them here, simply click on the toggle switches and modes until you can see them inside of this area. With the Cove layer selected, change your matte to track matte. By default, it's set to be a alpha selected track matte, which is what we want on this one. Notice that the words disappear. However, when you go to animate it, they will appear whenever the words "the cove" goes inside of that rectangular area. With this done, we can close out this layer, and finally let's turn back on the text for On Crescent Lake. We want to animate this by having its opacity come up and like it's fading in, and also move just a little bit. So with the text on the Crescent Lake layer selected, press the P key to see its position, and hold down Shift as you press the T key to open its transparency or opacity section. Since it's already in its final state, let's move our playhead to 3 seconds, and then click the stopwatch for both the position and the opacity. This will be its final state. So we're going to back up our playhead to 2 seconds, and let's slightly nudge On Crescent Lake up just a little bit, and we'll set its beginning opacity all the way down to 0%. As with the others, we can select all of these keyframes and add some easy ease by going to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. To back up the entire animation and play it from the beginning, it should look something like this. Let's go back down to our timeline. We can close out all of our layers. Let's remove this background layer by selecting it and pressing Delete, and we're going to import an image, or excuse me, a movie to place behind it. Go into our project panel, we can go to File, and let's import a file. Select the beach scene movie, and let's bring it in as footage. We'll say Open. We can then click and drag this beach scene movie to the bottom of our layers panel to place it inside of here. To colorize our logo so that it's easily noticeable as it plays, there's a couple of things we can do. First, move your playhead so that you can see all of the parts of the logo. In my case, I've got it just after 3 seconds. To change the colors of the word "the cove," let's make sure the cove layer is selected. We can go up to Effect, down to Channel. There it is. And we want to invert the colors. Essentially, everything that's black will now be turned to white. So that's the easiest way to invert or to change those colors. To apply a specific color to the black part, let's do it for the line. So I'm going to choose the graphic line layer. Let's go up to Effect, down to Color Correction, and we're going to do another simple tint. With the tint effect applied, we can map a color to the black colors that are already on this layer. Clicking on the little swatch, we can go in and type in a specific RGB value. So in this case, an R value of 245. Hit Tab, a G value of 140, and a B or a blue value of 65. We'll say OK to this. Let's do the same thing for On Crescent Lake. So choose the On Crescent Lake layer, go up to Effect, and this time, if we choose the word Tint, it'll automatically apply that without having to hunt and peck and find it within the different subcategories. Again, click on the black map to. We're going to set the R value to be 155. Press Tab, the G value of 90, and a black value, or excuse me, a blue value of 240. We'll say OK to this. The final thing we want to do is to make a pre-composition and apply a drop shadow to the overall effect. Pre-composing or pre-comping layers is kind of like grouping them all together into one main other composition. In order to do this, we're going to do it for all of the layers that are part of the logo. So I'm going to select the topmost layer, hold down the Shift key, and the bottommost layer. Notice that I didn't get the beach scene movie, just all of the ones that have part of the logo to it. Then we can go up to Layer and down to Pre-compose. This is going to ask us to move all of those layers into a new composition. I'm going to call this my graphic and say OK. Notice now that I have a new composition called graphic, and it's inside of its own individual layer. Now we can apply a layer style to this pre-composed animation. With that layer selected, let's go up to Layer, down to Layer Styles, and choose Drop Shadow. When playing around with layer styles, those can be found in the actual layer itself. You may have to open up the Layer Style submenu, and here's where you can see the drop shadow and all of the different effects that you can animate with it. The only thing that we're going to change up will be the size of it from 5 to 15. That'll give it a little bit larger spread out feel. With this done, we can back up and play our composition. And if everything looks good, we can render it. To do this, let's go back to our project panel. Do make sure that the Cove logo type composition has been selected. Then let's go to File, down to Export, and add that to the render queue. We'll keep everything else exactly the same. Make sure to choose your output, specifying where you want it to go to, and add your name to the file. We can press render. Once finished, make sure to turn in the After Effects file as well as your rendered movie.